Geez, it is Cicadaville down here. But wanted to make a video on a different topic. I don't know if you guys see that antenna right there on the top of my roof, but if I had $1 for every time someone has asked me, hey, what is that antenna in the last 2 weeks, I'd have, well, I guess not that much, but enough to buy a couple of gallons of gas, and on today's standards, that's saying a lot. But I wanted to briefly talk about that antenna and what the setup is and how it works. And for those that don't know, that's a cell signal booster, or just a cell booster for short. The one I have on my truck's the WeBoost Drive Reach RV. And full disclosure, this video is not sponsored by WeBoost. I did pay for this like anyone else. This video is, however, sponsored by Squarespace. I'll tell you more about them later. But yeah, I've gotten so many questions lately about the cell booster, and I realized when I was looking into these things, it was really hard for me to get like a cut and dry answer of what are they, do they work, how do they work, how do you make them work the best, and all that. So I figured I'd take a quick second, make a video, run through all of that really quickly, so anyone that's interested might not go through some of the woes I went through on my previous setup getting into the, cell booster thing. So first and foremost, what is a cell booster? Well, it's basically exactly what it says. It just boosts the signal for your cell phone. Basically, think of it like an external plug-in antenna, except for it runs wirelessly. You don't have to plug your phone into anything. It's got an external kind of receiving antenna. Then there's a little booster unit on the inside of the car, as well as an interior antenna. I say receiving antenna, even though technically I think both ends would be transceiving. But anyway, the outside is going to be a super high gain omnidirectional antenna that's going to be super sensitive to cell signal, and it's going to be able to take that signal from the highest point well away from the other antenna in your car and boost it through so that you're able to get cell signal a lot of times where you wouldn't have signal before, or just take mediocre signal and make it better. Now, one thing I want to clarify too, because I think a lot of people just have unrealistic expectations with these boosters. Now, they are what they say. It's a booster, so there has to be some signal there to boost. It's not an end-all be-all signal creator. It doesn't turn your phone into like a sat phone. You need to be somewhere that has some form of cell phone coverage. And now, a lot of the antennas in our cell phones are the integrated ones that are built into the actual chassis, and they're not that great when it comes to just working as an antenna. So that's where these cell boosters can help out a lot. Now, a good example of a place where it works really well is where I'm standing right now. I am actually at the bottom of my driveway, and behind me is a hill to the south that shadows the signal from the towers that are way to the south of us, about 15 miles. So up on that hill, great cell signal. Down here, absolutely worthless. And stuff like that is always a pain, because if you're on the phone, whether I'm leaving the house or driving home, there's two different spots, depending on what direction I'm going, that I have to stop to continue my phone call if I don't want to lose signal. So that's the basic rundown of the setup. Now, I mentioned that I have the Drive Reach RV, which is the RV version of this cell booster. And the reason I went with that one is that it has the higher gain antennas for both the outside and the inside. And previously I had the car version that had the smaller antenna on both, and I didn't find that there was much gain with that. And come to find out after the fact, I also didn't have it set up correctly, because the one big key thing, or the first key thing, is that you want your antennas, both the exterior and interior antennas, to be as far apart as possible. So I've got my exterior antenna all the way on the back of my camper shell on the truck, and I've got the interior antenna all the way to the front of the cab. Now, to my understanding, the reason that you need to have such a large gap between those antennas is because the signal that the outside is receiving is the same signal that it's boosting on the inside. So if they're too close together, what can happen is that the inside antenna would be basically transmitting a signal that the outside antenna is receiving, and then it just turns into a loop of talking to itself, and it's never actually making contact with the tower. So anyway, you want to make sure that those are as far apart as possible. You also want to make sure that your cell phone on the inside is as close as possible to the transmitting or the inside antenna. Again, I think they limit that just so it doesn't kind of get caught up with the outside antenna, but that was one big thing I screwed up on my first cell booster. Anyway, I'll show you how I have this set up, give you a little rundown of how it works. Okay, so basically I have the inside antenna tucked under my center console off to the side. And the reason I left a little slack is so that I could set it up here if I wanted to let other people have closer access to it. But for the most part, I just leave it tucked down here, out of sight and out of mind. Most of the time I'm setting my phone either in this cubby or up on this wireless charging mount right there. Let's show you how this thing works. Right now I've got 1 bar and LTE. I will go ahead and flip on my auxiliary switch. And if we give it just a minute, there's Haley. I got that extra bar. All right, so in addition to just getting cell signal, it does actually boost your data as well. So I'm gonna show you here. If we do a speed test, this is with the signal booster, the cell booster on. Got about 10 megs down, 1.8 up. So we'll go ahead, turn the cell booster off. Wow, and we are actually getting some signal down here, which is strange. A lot of times it's completely dead. But still, that was almost 10 times faster with the cell booster on. And as far as how I set it up, I basically just tapped into one of the aux switches, which is super simple to do on the Ford Raptor or even the Super Duties, they have that. There's power behind the battery. There's a jumper wire that goes from up under the hood to the little kick panel down here. Ran the wire. And this is where I mounted the actual booster itself, just behind the seat, mounted it up against the rear bulkhead, cut out the little insulation around it so it could ventilate, but it's really clean in there, way out of the way. So there you guys go. That is the answer to the question that everyone's been asking me, what the heck is that antenna and what does it do? So for the cell signal booster, it works pretty well, and I figure it was probably of interest to some of you guys that, like me, live places where you have spotty cell signal because it can be super irritating. But another thing I should mention that I think is important to note with that is that having extra cell signal can be a huge safety factor or feature. So that's one of the bigger selling points. I know these things aren't cheap. I think they're like 500 bucks, but to me, if it could be the difference between being able to make a phone call or not make a phone call, something like that could come in super handy in the future. I spend a lot of time out in the middle of nowhere anyway, so getting that extra reach of cell range is super beneficial. And going back to the install, because I know I didn't cover that, it's super simple. All it needs is 12 volt power, and then you got to plug in both antennas and run the wires to where you want the antennas. It comes with some mounting brackets, at least with this one, that clamp onto things. If you get the car version, I think the outside antenna just is like magnetic and sticks to the top of your car. It's fairly easy to set up. I think it took me about an hour, but it's not nearly as easy as designing a website with Squarespace. And yes, this is the time of the video that I get to say thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and being a huge supporter of me and this channel. For those that don't know, Squarespace is the ultimate platform to build a website and run your business. You start with one of their templates that are award-winning that you craft into your own beautiful professional looking and working website that works on both desktop as well as mobile. And they have features for literally every industry. So I don't care what it is you're trying to do with the website, whether it's an online store, personal blog, professional photo gallery, or maybe you're just trying to book your clients online through your website, you can do that with Squarespace. So if you haven't yet, head over to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to purchase, use code Trent Palmer at checkout. That'll get you 10% off. Anyway, guys, thank you for sticking around till the end. I know there was no flying in this video, but the reason for that is that I've actually had my head buried getting prepped for a very cool trip that I am leaving for in 2 days. So I'm getting all my stuff together. There will be a bunch of flying, actually none in my plane, but we will be doing some flying in cool remote areas on a really awesome adventure. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And you guys know the drill. Like this video if you do, subscribe if you haven't, come be my wingman. We'll see you on the next one.